From day one, we are told who we should be, how to live, and what's acceptable. Before we even have a chance to discover ourselves, our society has already drawn those lines for us. But what happens when those lines are keeping us from knowing and embracing who we truly are? Welcome to Unbox Yourself with Samantha Fox, a podcast about unpacking and unlearning everything that's kept you from living as your true self. Through honest conversations about your internal emotional landscape, sexuality, coming out later in life, relationships, and the journey to self-acceptance, we break free from the boxes we never chose. Hey, thanks for being here today. I have one of my best friends and also a polyamory coach on with me today named Heidi Savell. And we explore Heidi's history as a bisexual human and all of the different experiences that she has had around being bisexual. And I thought this was timely considering that the Bi Life community is opening its doors on July 1st. And this is a place for exploration, community, and support where women who are married to men in monogamous relationships and that identify as bisexual get to be in community with other women like them and also explore what is coming up for them. There can be a lot of isolation in this particular population. At least that's what I've found in my practice. And my effort here is to really bring women together in a safe space to be able to talk about what it is that's happening for them and find ways to ease any difficulty or pain, difficulty in integrating their identity, celebrating their identity, or even just feeling really invisible in the world that we're in. And I just want to say compulsory heterosexuality, honestly, is the initiation point for all of that we suffer from. So check out the information in the show notes if you're interested in learning more about the Bi Life. And if you are interested in opening up your relationship in ethical non-monogamy or polyamory, check out the show notes where you will find Heidi's information for her program, which is called The Polywobbles for people who are new to polyamory. Thanks for joining us. Hi, Heidi. It's so wonderful to have you here, and I can see your face, and we're talking in real time, which is such a treat for me.
I know. We don't often talk in real time. It is a treat.
I remember the first time I met you in Annie's program.
Yeah.
Heidi and I did a program together, a coaching program together where we built our programs, and we met each other in the mastermind portion of this program. And the first call we had, I immediately knew that you were going to be my friend. I was like, I like her. I like her.
I don't think I knew we were going to be friends because I thought you were way too cool for me.
Oh my God. No, I knew right away. Because you're like me. You're just like, you just say it like it is.
Yeah.
And that's so refreshing because I have such a hard time finding people who say it like it is. And even though sometimes you might not like what I say, like today.
Yeah, we were talking about that.
Yeah. But I know you appreciate it. And so I don't feel, I'm never like worried that I'm going to like offend you,
Totally.
And I do offend people by being really direct and honest,
Totally. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I love that I can just say, oh, I hate that you're telling me that. I hate that you said that. And you're like, I know.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm so happy to have you here. So I really wanted to bring you on because, I think you're just such a beautiful example of when bisexuality in terms of an identity is fully lived and fully experienced. Yeah. And you found a way to make that happen for you in a way that really works for you. And I want you to share with the world more about that, more about your bisexuality and, when, because I know you were married before, you were married and then divorced. Like, when did you
realize you were bisexual? Was it when you were much younger? Is it something that came to you later?
Yeah. So in my early teens, I remember feeling okay. So there was this game we played at sleepovers that, like, I've tried to talk to other people about this as like my queer awakening. No one else knows what I'm talking about. Maybe it was something that my friends and we were all like closeted queers, and so we made this up. But it was called the nervous game, and you would like run your hand or your fingers like up someone's leg starting at the ankle, and then they would say like stop when they got nervous,
Oh,
and like
wow.
see how far up their leg you would go. And this was
Wow.
like
Where was this? What part of the country was this?
this was in Alaska.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because in New York, we didn't do that game, but I can tell you it sounds really fun.
Yeah.
I wish we did.
Yeah, it was fun. I don't know if anyone, maybe my friends and I made it up, because like I've tried to like talk to people like, oh, the nervous game, and everyone's like, what are you talking about? But I remember doing that with my friends and being like, ooh, this feels good. This is fun. And just like that sort of like sensual touch with like girlfriends. And then I had a friend who came out in junior high. And I remember having this feeling of like, oh my God, I think that's me too. And it was like a bad feeling. I was like full of like dread and fear and like, oh my God, what if that's true for me? My life is going to be so hard. What am I going to do? And I
internalized homophobia, in other words.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Internalized homophobia. And I was like sick with like fear and dread for like a couple weeks. And then I eventually, like, I don't know, convinced myself that I wasn't. And then I moved on. And that's like those two are like my first, like, oh, and they were around the same time, like, early teens, preteens, junior high. And so those were my first indications of not being straight.
Yeah. And so interesting just that, when we think about internalized homophobia, like how early, and we're going back now. I mean, you're a lot younger than I am, but going back still quite a bit in time. And that internalized homophobia was there when you were in middle school, junior high.
Yeah. Like, I mean, it's interesting because like, it wasn't like, being gay was a bad thing in my family. We had family friends who were gay, but it was just in the culture that homophobia and that being gay was something bad, and it had seeped into me so young, so early, that like when I thought maybe this was me, I remember it was like the biggest pit of dread in my stomach that I'd ever felt.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And so during that time, like middle school, you played the games, you were like, uh-oh, what if that's me? And were you also at that time like interested in boys? And
yeah, I always had a crush on someone. And, it's really funny because I like finding a crush was a project. Like I would be like, who's going to be my crush next? And I would like pick someone to be my crush. And then it was like, something to get excited about and be excited to go to school for. And my crushes were always boys, but I had in my 8th grade, so I went to middle school, so it was 7th, 8th grade, and in 8th grade, I had what I know now was the biggest crush on my best friend, who were like fast friends. We were inseparable that year. We spent all of our time together. Her name was Jenny. And and I just thought she was like the prettiest and the coolest. And I got so excited to be able to spend time with her. And it's only in retrospect that I look back and I'm like, oh my God, I had a huge crush on her. And the other thing was like, she got cooler friends when we went to high school and ditched me. And I was devastated. Like it was like the worst breakup. It was worse than any actual breakup I ever went through in high school. Like this was, I remember my mom would pick me up from school and I would just be sobbing in the car after school every day.
Yeah. I mean, that age, it's really hard, with friends and friends changing friend groups and being left out. Were you even though you had this crush and you didn't really realize it was a crush, were you still doing the plan with the crush on the boy, like at the same time, or yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
I always like had someone I was crushing on.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like interesting because at the time it wasn't even like it was never like planning a crush like, oh, I'm actually going to be with this person. It was just like someone to like get excited about and think was cute and fun and sweet.
Yeah, and like focus on.
Yeah, I didn't really date much in high school or college.
Huh.
I didn't date a lot. I had two boyfriends in high school, just my senior year. And then in college, I also had two boyfriends. Both were pretty short-lived. And like a really intense crush on my best friend in college.
That you were aware of as a crush?
Yeah, I knew it was a crush at that point. Yeah, I was very aware that I was crushing on her hard.
Okay, so this has been with you since you're quite young.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it was until college that I fully acknowledged it, though.
Mm-hmm. And then at that point in time, did you acknowledge it like, oh, I'm bisexual?
I didn't use the word bisexual. No, I just started dating and being interested in women. But I didn't think, I don't know, I didn't even have a label for it. I just knew that I was interested in dating and was crushing on women.
And so, but you said you had two boyfriends in college.
Yeah, they were both pretty early on in college, and then senior years when I started dating women. Nothing major, like not like serious relationships, but dates with women, making out with women. Yeah, pretty much exclusively. And until I opened up and became polyamorous, I never really dated men and women at the same time. It was like I was either dating men or I was dating women.
And you felt equally excited for either gender. It was more just about the person.
Yeah. I'd say that's true. You know, I've seen this joke online about like queer women who are like, oh yeah, when I was young, I was like, everyone's a little queer, right? And like, that should have been my sign. And I feel that way about bisexuality, where like, you know, I have clients or friends who like date across the gender spectrum. And I'm always like, well, yeah, of course you do. Yeah, of course. Like everyone, that's, you know, it's just like, for me, it's like, everyone probably does that, right? And I realize it's like, oh yeah, I am very bisexual, where, you know, I've seen friends who don't necessarily label themselves as bisexual. Maybe they primarily date women or they primarily date men, but then like will have a relationship with someone of different gender than the one they normally date. And other people in our lives are like, wait, what? Are you coming out? What is this? Are you like, what are you? Have you been a lesbian the whole time? And I've never had that. I'm just like, yeah, cool. You found someone you vibe with. I love this for you. You know, it's like
so
other
no
people
label.
who are, yeah. And people are always like, what's your identity? You know? And for me, it always just felt so natural. I mean, I do use like bisexual or pansexual now.
Yeah.
Or queer. I often refer to myself as queer, but yeah, I didn't feel the need for a label back then.
Yeah, I love that. And so many people, I think, still really feel that way and just hate labels.
Yeah.
Which is super valid. And also, I think it's valid that some people really like a label and it's important to them, right? There's like no right way to be however you are, whatever your identity is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then somehow you ended up getting married to a man.
Yeah. It's kind of how I feel about it too. Somehow it happened.
How'd that happen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I think that was like definitely compulsory heterosexuality and like compulsory monogamy, and this feeling of like, oh my God, I'm like in my early 30s. Why am I should be married. And so, you know, it was like this person who like fit enough of the boxes. He was training to be a therapist. I was a therapist. He was from the same hometown as me. He, you know, he was reasonably attractive. And so it was like, cool, okay, let's do this. And I very much felt like I was doing what was expected of me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And yeah, in the like year leading, we were together 3 years and we got engaged at the 1 year mark. And in the year leading up to our wedding, I was like plagued with ambivalence and told him about it. And he was just like, oh yeah, that's normal. That's fine. Don't worry about it. And then like pretty much within like a few weeks after getting married was like, oh, I don't want to do this. This was a mistake.
And was it just that you were so lukewarm about him as a human, or was there any part of it that had to do with your sexuality? Like, what was it that was coming up that was like, oh?
I mean, I can't say. I mean, a lot of it was just who he was as a person. And, you know, I don't think I ever had the thought, even when we got married, of like, this is the only person I'll ever have sex with again, which maybe speaks to like, not that I ever had the thought, oh, I'm going to cheat on this person, but I never thought like, oh, this is probably the last person I'll ever have sex with. I mean, I think it was probably for me more of an indication of like monogamy not being particularly important to me. But yeah, I think my ambivalence was primarily just that we were such a terrible fit. When, you know, when we decided to open our relationship, there was like a great deal of excitement and relief about being able to, you know, explore and express and be fully present in my sexuality.
Mm-hmm. So the idea when you were with him, so I mean, you said it was 3 years altogether?
Yeah, 3 years
So
altogether.
that's really quick. So by the time you were opening after you got married in that last, I guess, year of your marriage, the opening was in some way something that you were going to be doing to help your marriage sustain itself.
That was the idea.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, you know, perhaps had we had a strong marriage, that might have worked. But, you know, I think what I always say about opening up is like, you have to have a really strong relationship, because opening up will shine a light on all of the little cracks and fissures in things. And so you know, you want to make sure that foundation is really solid. And ours just wasn't. I mean, open or not, we were never going to last.
Okay. So you ended up leaving that relationship, getting divorced. And then at that point, were you poly? Were you dating multiple people?
Yes, at that point, I basically like left the relationship, but kept the relationship structure. And so I remained poly, remained open, and have been so ever since.
Okay. So ever since then, you've been ethically non-monogamous.
Yes.
And my guess is that you had a lot of really interesting experiences with being ethically non-monogamous in the early stages, which is how you built your program.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I struggled with it a lot for the first few years. And so, you know, that, like you said, that's exactly why I built my program for people who are going through the struggles of the early days, because it's a lot to adopt an entirely new relationship structure, to shift a paradigm, to like move outside of this idea that all of these things that we've coded in the past as threat are no longer threatening.
Mm-hmm. And the reason that you decided after the divorce to maintain that relationship style?
I mean, I think a couple reasons. One, I think it just, as hard as it was, it just felt more authentic to me. And it felt like the only way that I would be able to really like express my full sexuality.
Okay. So that was a part of it for you.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, that was a major part of it.
Okay. I did not know that. I love that I'm learning all this new information.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the reason I opened, but it was certainly one of the big reasons why I stayed open.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
because once I started being able to date people across the gender spectrum at the same time and feel like all of these different parts of me able to be expressed, I was like, oh, why would I ever stop doing this?
Yeah. And so take me then a little bit through from then, which is like 12 years ago. And yes, you had struggles and you had to figure out, how to function in this new relationship style and get through it, which you clearly did. And now you help other people through. But I want to hear like your personal story from then, because I know you have a partner who you have since married.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to just hear a little bit about like how that all happened. And
yeah, so I've been with my partner who I'm married to for 10 years. And I mean, he knew when we got together that I identified as queer. He knew I was bisexual, and he's always been very supportive. And he's been supportive in like a really beautiful way, and that I've never felt like fetishized by him. I've never had him say like, oh, that's hot that you like other, it's like not that sort of fetishizing it or like making it something for his own sexuality. He's never done that. I felt like he's always really just seen that as like just part of who I am, and really like loved and respected that part of me, just like all the other parts of me.
mm-hmm. So he never said, oh, that works for me too. And like, we can do threesomes or something like that.
No, I mean, I think all people in the polyamory world like explore whether or not like they might do group play.
Yeah.
And I think the reason we decided not to was not for any other reason than like there's barely any overlap in the people we're attracted to.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so like it was just like it was never going to be a thing for us. But yeah, even when we talked about like, oh, would we ever want to do group play? It never felt like I was being fetishized, and like, or like that it would necessarily have to be with women,
Right.
It was just like group play of any sort.
Right. And
but that's just never been part of our dynamic. And, it's just not part of our dynamic, and that's fine. That's great.
And when the two of you met, he was also poly or ethically non-monogamous. He had been actively already in that community.
Yes. In fact,
Okay.
He was already dating a couple people when we started dating.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I know you've been together a long time. I know he's very special person in so many ways. Yes. And I also remember you dating, kind of dating when you and I first started becoming friends. You were on the apps and you were going on dates. I guess it seems like there's maybe a little bit of like a start and stop to the dating. Like sometimes life just gets really busy and you don't really have time to be, having another partner or looking for another partner. And then other times it kind of opens up and it's like, oh, it's springtime. Oh, it's summertime. Like, let me start looking for somebody again. Right.
You know me so well. You know my pattern.
Yeah. So, but I do remember, I would say back in like maybe 23. So it was like post-COVID, that you had gone on a number of dates. I mean, you were open to dating whoever was there, but you were dating, cis men and queer people. And there was a certain point where you said to me, I'm no longer dating cis men.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember that.
So tell me about that moment for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think my stance has softened a little since then, but it's so at that point I was running into the same problems over and over again when I was dating cis men, where there was like some entitlement and unexamined toxic masculinity and a lack of ability to communicate in a way that felt like authentic and honest and kind. Just a lot of stuff that left me feeling yucky. And also there are ways in which, my husband is a very big exception to this, but there are ways where when it came to like dating men, I never felt in the driver's seat with my sexuality, because there was this way in which, and this isn't true of all men, obviously, but I would find myself in these situations where when it came to dating, when it came to desire, when it came to sexuality, that when I was dating cis men, they were always like pushing the gas so much harder and faster than I wanted to. So there was never any room for me to like really explore my desires, because I was always responding to someone else's desires. And so like it felt like everything was responsive and nothing was like, there was no room for what I wanted or, needed or whatever was coming up. There was no room for my authentic desire to blossom on its own outside of in response. And that's not generally been true when I've dated queer folks.
I love that. That's so interesting. I mean, and it makes a lot of sense.
It's even like dating and like making the first move and approaching me and talking to me and planning the date.
Like coming at you.
Yes. I always felt like I was responding to people coming at me in a way where I never got to like explore what I wanted absent of response.
Yeah.
And like, instead, like, no, what do I just want when I'm not reacting to what someone else is bringing?
Yeah. I mean, that's such an important experience to be able to feel. And I know you and I have talked about that, in so many ways in my own past relationships, also just how that spaciousness, and it's something I talk a lot about in my content also, is this just the spaciousness and having that space to like want, and how important that is, when I also am very used to, and this is not only with men, but certainly started with men in my earlier years before I came out at 32, where they were just like pawing at me. So I had no space to want.
Yes.
I never even knew what it was like to want. But even with the women partners that I had, I still ended up somehow with a lot of women that didn't give me a ton of space. And it was not until I had a lot of space, which actually ended up being too much space for me, but that was where all my desires came up, and it was so beautiful. So yeah, there really is that balance. And I could see how you were finding yourself not being able to access any of that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so, that was a big part of my decision. And the other thing too was like, as a bisexual woman, especially a more femme presenting bisexual woman, like I have to work to date women. Like I can passively date men, but if I want to date women, I have to be very intentional about it, and I have to put effort into it. If I put no effort into it, I end up with men, because I think, and that has to do, I think, with bi invisibility. And I think it has to do with kind of what we're talking about, where like a lot of men are socialized in a way where they're pursuers. And so if I am not intentionally taking on the role of like, I am going to pursue, I am going to, go after what I want, not go after in like a predatory way, but, like pursue what I want, then I end up with men. And so that was another part of it where I was like, you know what, I am very intentionally looking to date women and trans folks and people all across the gender spectrum. But like, I am very intentionally deprioritizing cis men, because unless I intentionally do that, that's all I'm going to ever date.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's interesting because I remember, because I even did a post when you shared with me you were going to stop dating cis men. And I was like so excited, because we were going to, you were like, I'm going to show you what I'm wearing, and we're going to make me look like more queer. And I need your help. And I was so excited about that. But I honestly did not know. And I knew that you had dated queer folks in the past, but I didn't know that you had such a long history of, really since you were a kid, of having, those feelings of excitement and, fear also, but excitement around, being with different genders than men.
Yeah. Well, I think that really like speaks to the idea both of bi invisibility as well as like just back to this idea that as a femme presenting bi person, like it is just, I just end up, without any effort, I just keep dating men. I just end up with men. And that it takes like such an intentional effort to not. And so like unless I was actively pursuing women, I was with men.
Yeah, I have somebody that's worked with me over the years, and I believe she also met with you once. And beautiful woman, identified as bisexual her whole life, very attracted to women, but same thing, femme presenting. And every time a relationship with a woman would end, she would just go on the apps. And because it is harder to meet women.
Yes.
Even if you're not femme presenting, right? I'm not femme presenting. I have a hard time finding people on the apps, right? Yeah. So across the board, it is more work to meet queer people that you feel aligned with. And she would switch over. Like she would just switch over from looking at women. She would just get kind of tired and she'd want to like have some comfort and some cuddles and whatnot, or feel horny. And she would just switch over on the apps to men, and it would be a flood.
Yeah.
And she would get a new boyfriend within a week, from going on the apps. Boom. She would pick the guy she wanted, and that was it. It was done, And she has since gotten pregnant and had twins, and the twins are less than a year old now, and with this male partner. And, she's really struggling, she's really struggling with exactly what you're describing, which is there is this ease that happens with men, and there is a need for effort and intentionality and kind of ability also. She's not poly, or she wasn't poly, but to be able to withstand being alone.
Yes.
Right. Yes. Because if you can't be alone and you just need somebody, and you can't meet a woman quickly, you're going to just end up with a guy.
Yeah.
So I hear that. That's really, it's interesting to think of it that way. And that it really does take a lot of effort and intentionality, and creating that space for yourself is important.
Yeah. And I think that's, what I was doing in 2023 when you recall, when I was like, you know what, I am really only dating queer folks from here on forward. And I have done that, I have only done that. And, and when I say I've softened my stance, I think it's like, I am not opposed if the right person came along who happened to be a cis man, but I am specifically deprioritizing any sort of search for that. And I am prioritizing those queer relationships.
Mm-hmm. So in other words, like if you were on the apps and a cis man found you and was interesting and kind of, I don't know, just somehow.
Probably not. I think it would more be like if I met someone organically.
Okay.
That was the case for, but I don't think someone on the apps would. Yeah.
Okay. That's not even a possibility. Okay.
Yeah. It's more like if they fell in my lap and it was like, oh, there's like real mutual attraction here. But beyond that, I'm just not at this point in my life. I'm still very much, into prioritizing queer connections.
And, as I'm starting to work with more bisexual people, I hear some pushback around opening up relationships, like I'm really terrified of opening up our relationship because I really love my husband and we have such a great relationship. And I'm really scared that if I do open up the relationship, that, I don't know, things are going to get out of control, which I mean, you experienced what it was like early when you didn't know, right, how to
Yeah.
really be in these relationships, and things can get out of hand, right? I mean, things can go a little bit wild.
Yeah, I mean, I would say anyone who has the resources to do so, I would not open up a relationship, an existing relationship without professional support.
Good.
Just because there's just, yeah, a lot of ways that without someone really supporting you and helping you and like giving you ideas around like, here are some of the things to watch out for. Here are some pitfalls. Like, oh, you want to do this? Well, like, let's talk through the pros and cons of that. And here's how I've seen that work and how I've seen it not work so well. Like, I think, especially if you're talking about like, someone's like married, they have kids, like it is worth the investment to make sure that you're doing that in a way that is going to be sustainable to the extent that we can control, and do that in a way that will not blow up your life.
Right. And then on the other hand, the people that, really feel very strongly aligned with monogamy, but also identify as bisexual,
Yeah.
I've found an interesting separation in those women that have explored their queerness early, like you, in college, early years, dating, whatnot, and then ended up choosing a man and being in a very happy monogamous relationship with a man. I've found that those women seem more at ease with where they are. They don't have this like really strong nagging voice that's like, really like wanting them to be able to have the woman loving woman experience, queer experience. And then there are those that, compulsory heterosexuality happened, had no idea. I mean, I am one of those people. Like, I mean, I'm not bisexual, but I am one of those people. I had no idea. Like there were all the little nervous game feelings happening, happening. No clue. Right.
Yeah.
So those people that end up finding a great guy and, really settling down and doing monogamy and having a family, and then it comes in for them after. So they didn't know. Now they're married. Now they're monogamous. And that population I have found is really, really in pain because they really are struggling to, find a way to express their identity or integrate their identity. And I just think it's interesting. It's an interesting place to be. And I've heard some women talk about, kind of like their husbands know about this, know about their bisexuality. They're supportive of it. They're not supportive of them going outside the marriage on their own. They might be supportive of group play with their husband involved, right? Outside the marriage. So this is a way that this person could get some, queer experiences. And I've heard about having like an OnlyFans subscription and being able to, just get turned on maybe even before they have sexual intimacy, something that they do together, something they fantasize about together. And then that kind of prompts better sex for them.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, do you have any ideas on just ways people could integrate this without acting on it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think when I think about it, I think the main ways I see people who are bisexual, married to men, monogamous, the way I see them most successfully integrate that as part of their identity. One is ethical porn. So like OnlyFans or other sources where they can like, watch women being sexual with women and be aroused by it and explore through fantasy what they like, what turns them on, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other ways I've seen it are like becoming involved in queer community. You
Mm-hmm.
know, there are lots of ways to be involved in queer community that don't involve sex or dating, you know, so like joining like a queer softball league, or, you know, going to like queer comedy shows, or, you know, things like that, finding community
Mm-hmm.
with other queer folks. Yeah, and yeah, making queer friends too, you know, like being in that sort of community, I think is another way to really get to integrate that as part of your identity, even in a monogamous marriage.
Yeah, and I know that it's scary, for some of these people that came out as bisexual after they were in a relationship with a man and they're in a monogamous relationship. They feel like they're not going to be taken seriously. Going to a queer event, they feel kind of like an outsider. They feel like people are going to be like, "Oh, you're married to a man?" Like,
Yeah. I mean, I
right.
honestly still feel that way sometimes.
You feel that way when you are in the queer community.
Yeah, I mean, I've been really well received in my local queer community, but I have those fears. Yeah, I mean, I have
Mm-hmm.
a lot of those. Like, it's like internalized biphobia. I'm not queer
Mm-hmm.
enough. I'm an imposter. You know, what am I doing here if I'm married to a man? Like, yeah, I struggle with that. I mean, I think you've heard me kind of lament the feelings of like not being queer enough before.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I get that. I relate to that. And, you know, I think things are changing, at least in the communities that I exist in, where people are becoming so much more aware of biphobia and
Mm-hmm.
bi-erasure and the ways in which it harms people. And so people are really becoming a lot more welcoming of bi women who are in like straight presenting relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you know, I don't want to. I want to validate that fear. I certainly get that fear, and not everyone is going to be accepting. I think also finding community with other bi women. You know,
That's
there's
what I
lots,
think.
yeah, lots of other bi women who are married to men who like, you know, would be welcoming and accepting.
Right. And that's the program that I'm starting, the community that I'm starting called the Bi Life.
Yeah,
And I think honestly, as a late bloomer, having come out later as a lesbian, there are times where I myself feel like an outsider, and I've been gay for a long time.
yeah,
But because I'm in a subsection of that community, which is I did marry a man,
hmm,
I did have children, and then I realized I was gay afterwards, that when I'm surrounded by people that are all lesbians, lifelong lesbians,
yeah,
I feel out of place.
mm,
So I don't really feel like I belong, and I feel it's hard for me to relate to them.
yeah,
Because the truth is, I grew up very differently, and granted, we've all grown up differently, right? We've all had really different upbringings, but I mean, I didn't have the experiences they had growing up and dating and going to bars and going clubbing and whatever other things that they all had.
yeah.
I did not have that as a gay person.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean that makes so much sense. Like you didn't have coming of age as a lesbian, you know, you didn't
Right.
have like, you know, being messy in your 20s and like, you know, dating all your friends and making out in the bathrooms at the lesbian bars and stuff like that. Like,
Right. Which is why
yeah.
I love Fletcher, who, by the way, recently just came out as bisexual. But her music is like, it's like my 20s that I missed being
Yeah.
gay. So I'm so obsessed with her songs because I could feel my inner gay 20-year-old that missed all of that.
I love that. That is
Yeah.
so
But
beautiful.
yeah, but I do want to say that, that is why I built the Unbox Your Sexuality program for women coming out later, so that they could experience. I don't know how I would have gotten through without my late blooming friends. Like I had
Yeah.
friends who were just like me,
Yeah.
older than me even, and just coming out. So that was really helpful for me. And even to this day, that is community that I don't know, I just have like a really strong connection to. Like we really get each other on a different level. And that's my idea around the bi life, is that you know, you might feel really uncomfortable just going to LGBTQ events and feel like you don't fit in. But if you could be around a lot of other bisexual women that are in heteromonogamous relationships with men, and together you can form community, that in that you will be able to really come into your identity and feel comfortable in your identity and, you know, express it and have it be reflected back and mirrored back. So that is my hope.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's so needed. I think it's so powerful and so needed. And you know, I think that could really change a lot of people's lives to have that community and not feel so closeted, truly. Like, you know, it's like, you know, I've been there before, like in my younger years, and like the biphobia where it feels like neither side wants me, neither side accepts me, you know, like I'm not straight enough, but I'm not queer enough. And so, yeah, getting to be in community where you can kind of let your guard down seems like just really so needed and so powerful.
Yeah. And just with heteronormativity, what it is, that when we are in a heterosexual relationship, I mean, you know, most of the world is heteronormative. And so we are in communities. I mean, most of us, I mean, you're on one side of the country. I'm on the other side. We're in meccas for gay people, and for queer people, but most people are not.
Yeah.
And they're living in communities where there is no reflection of them that around them. They're just everybody. And you don't know. I mean, maybe people are bisexual and they just aren't talking about it, but you feel so alone.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And like there's because it's not reflected. It's not there. And especially with like, you know, I use the term bi invisibility. Like if I'm out with my husband, I don't read as queer. No one knows that I'm bi just by looking at me. And so how many other people am I looking at and thinking like, oh, there's no other queer people here. And I'm doing it too, because, you know, I'm seeing folks who might be in a straight presenting relationship.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard to not have community, because I mean, it's the same with polyamory and non-monogamy, you know, like that community piece is so important and can make such a difference. And so, you know, like not having that is just can be heartbreaking, and getting to have that finally is such a relief for so many people.
Yes. Okay. Is there any, I don't know, is there like any last thing that you would want to share with somebody who was, I don't know, just like, you know, really their bisexuality is very much a part of who they are, and they're just like really struggling to integrate it and live it and find a way, and they're just feeling so isolated and so alone and so different, and like there's nobody else out there like them. And I don't know, is there like any?
Yeah, I mean, I think that in terms of integrating it into identity, I have a lot of fun with accessories and adornments, and finding that as a way to express my sexuality. So I have this like purse that's the colors of the bisexual pride flag. I have a lot of like rainbow earrings, and a lot of my like apparel and my jewelry and stuff like that is like ways that I'm trying to like fight against bi invisibility and, you know, show that I am queer. And I think that, you know, not everyone's into jewelry or accessories or whatever, but my point with that is like finding ways to celebrate it, that feel authentic to you, you know, like even if you are in a monogamous relationship, like this is still a part of your identity, and you deserve to get to celebrate that, you know, like you're single right now. And so you're not currently like having sex with women, but you're no less gay because you're not having sex with women right now.
So gay.
Yeah, so gay. And
so
these
gay.
women are so bisexual, even though they're not having sex with women.
Right. Exactly. I love that. Yeah, I love that.
And, you know, if anyone is listening to this and thinking like, oh, maybe opening up my relationship is an option for me, I would be happy to talk to you. I would be happy to support you. I'm sure Samantha's going to include a link to my page, set up a free consult with me. I would love to talk to you about how I can support you in that journey, if that is something that resonates for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll put it in the show notes and people can reach out to you. Thank you so much for sharing all these details, which somehow over the last years I missed. We've been so busy talking about day-to-day life. I did not know about all the history. I mean, really, I didn't know that there was I knew there was a history to your queerness, but I didn't know how far back it went.
Totally.
I am envious. I'm envious.
I mean, I was no more aware than you were in in my before college, I think, I didn't.
Yeah, but you had the college experience of dating women. I wish I had that.
Yes, I did have that. That's true.
Yeah, I mean, that's
dip my toe into some of that fun messiness that it sounds like Fletcher talks about.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
All right. Well, love you so much. Thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing.
Love you too. I always love these conversations. We have so much.
There'll be more, I'm sure.
I love it.
Okay. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for spending this time with me on Unbox Yourself with Samantha Fox. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps more folks find these conversations. If you're ready to unbox from something that's keeping you stuck, I would love to support you. You can find the application to the show at unboxyoursexuality.com. Let's stay connected. Find me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Lesbian Curiosity Coach. Give me a follow and join the conversation. Remember, we only have this one time through. Why not unbox yourself and let your true self shine in all its beautiful glory?